Well, you heard the former head of state there, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, talking about security being a major issue for Nigeria. It's an important issue as we go into the elections. Just a few days ago, the governor of Niger State was at the villa in Abuja, and the statistics which he gave was also quite revealing. He said that communities in his state had experienced more than 50 attacks, leading to the death of almost 200 people, 25 of them security personnel. As if that were not enough, we've also seen the governors of Zamfara and the governor of Borno, which had hitherto been freed of terrorist attacks in many places. But the governor of Borno did say that two communities or two local governments have now been taken over or are under the control of ISWAP terrorists. So the security issue is a complex one, and I think the president did acknowledge as much in his New Year statement to Nigerians, saying that security will continue to be a front burner issue. It's in light of that where we'll continue to put security at the front burner in many of our conversations. And this morning, we're joined by Mr. Daniel Bwala, who is a legal practitioner. You're welcome to our studios this morning. Thank you for having me, Mark. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. Well, security is not going to go away anytime soon. And doesn't look like, I don't know what your perception is of the issue, because sometimes it's a matter of perception. Right. And in many instances, if you're not in the place, if you're not where the issues of anxiety are being felt by citizens, I think we all live with some level of anxiety, but it's all in varying degrees. Correct. And oftentimes it can go away. If we're not seeing it on the front pages, we think it is over. But many times, especially when you hear news like the one we heard a few days ago from the governor of Niger State, that the communities in his state had experienced up to 50 attacks in January alone. Wow.
You mentioned something like borrowing. Again, I'm not an economist.
We'll get to the issue of borrowing, and I will come there.
No, you already raised it as an issue.
Indeed, we'll get there in a moment. But this issue of subsidy, I'm sure you watched television a few days ago when the Senate president went to visit the president. Right. And he came out and he said that what they discussed was that the president is not going to... perhaps we should play that track. Maybe we should have it on standby.
I can help you with what he said.
So he said that the president said he's not going to remove subsidy.
No, that's not what he said.
Okay, I think perhaps our producers can help us
while
with,
they search
that particular track, if it's ready, if it's on standby.
So, if you permit me, while they search that, let me quote what the Senate president said. He said he had a discussion with the president, and the president told him he never told anybody to remove for a subsidy.
So how does that sort of statement, for instance, I mean, that statement was not predicated on a context such as the PIA, which the Senate president is very well aware of and hit his gavel on to pass?
So the answer is just simple. The act is a law that the president is bound by. So if someone said, I never told anybody I'm removing subsidy, he's right in every sense of the word, because it is the act that is bringing to bear the necessity
Senate president
for the removal.
says that he doesn't, I'm hoping that track will be on standby, because I thought I heard him say that he too doesn't believe that fuel subsidies should be removed, that what should be looked at is this issue of us consuming 100 million liters of petrol per day, that we need to scrutinize. Okay, I understand that track is ready now. Right. So let's take a listen to it.
Many citizens were so concerned, our constituents across the country are very concerned that the federal government will remove the petroleum subsidy. And for us as parliamentarians, as legislators representing the people of Nigeria, this must be of interest to us. And we've just finished our recess. We had gone home to our constituencies and senatorial districts, and we felt the pulse of our people. And I found it necessary to visit Mr. President as the leader of our government and our leader in the country to discuss this particular issue of concern to Nigerians. And I'm happy to inform Nigerians that Mr. President never told anyone that the petroleum subsidy should be removed. I know and I agree that the subsidy is very heavy, but I think we must never transfer the burden to the citizens. I believe that we need to look at the quoted figure of maybe 100 million liters that people claim we are consuming. Is it I'm paying either under recoveries or subsidy? Is it really 100 million liters per day? How on earth are we consuming that? We need to look at this critically and see how we can find the truth. Because I am not convinced that within the boundaries of Nigeria we are consuming 100 million liters. Probably our neighboring countries may benefit from this. Can't we do something about it? It's a failure on us if we are not able to control it, this particular aspect of smuggling out the petrol, and then in return push the burden to the ordinary citizen. Those of us in government should come together and find a solution to this, including the PDP states and PDP as a political party.
Well, you heard the Senate President
Very
there.
well.
He didn't say that when his constituents raised the concern, he explained to them that as a result of the PIA, which we just passed, it is a matter of law. This subsidy is going to go anyway.
So the response to that...
He didn't say that.
Yeah, the reason is because it is not the business of government whether he had to explain to his people or not. Government discharged its responsibility. Again, what he said is not out of context in my view.
It's not the business of who to
It is not...
explain.
Whether I go to speak to my constituency or not is not the business of federal government.
Yes, my point is this.
Yeah.
As the Senate President, as one who hit the gavel,
Right.
passing the law, you know, and sending it to the President who eventually assented to it,
Right.
he didn't tell his constituents that, hey, constituents, as a result of what we've done, this subsidy is going to go.
So my response is just simple, Markwe. There is no debate on that. Now, the responsibility of lawmakers is to communicate to their constituency the law they are making. This Petroleum Industry Act was not enacted by the president. It was enacted by the parliament. The details of the Petroleum Industry Act suggest that NNPC will finally operate as a limited liability company, profit-making company. Now,
it was passed by the National Assembly, enacted by the National Assembly, it is true.
And signed by the president.
Exactly.
So now, let me he
so
talked about
you cannot
transferring...
absolve the president of it.
No, definitely, the president is to implement the law.
But he signed to it.
No, that's what I'm saying.
He's a party to it.
You don't get what I'm saying is, he is implementing what they passed. It is the process of implementing what they passed that will ultimately
And he agreed to. They didn't just pass it. They didn't override his veto.
Exactly. But do you know the implementation of the law? That act does not operate on its own.
I understand
the executive branch of government will implement
What
it.
I want you to acknowledge is that the president was a part and parcel of what was passed. As a matter of fact, if we understand it clearly, the Petroleum Industry Act was an executive bill. Isn't that correct?
It was passed by the National Assembly. That's the point I'm saying.
In other words, they were all part and parcel of what was done. You cannot absorb the executive arm of government.
You absorbed the National
I'm not
Assembly.
absolving anyone.
So permit me to give you the context of what he said. You see, fuel subsidy removal is a government decision, executive, legislature, and ultimately will get to the judiciary. Here is the point. The concern he raised is that our constituent might feel the impact of this decision. He's right. They will feel the impact. But what is the long-term effect? We are now talking about federal government investing in infrastructure, and we are complaining that the federal government keeps borrowing. If removal of subsidy will help in generating the funds to fund infrastructure, that means the poor man who bears the brunt can get the relief in some sort. He talked about other countries.
We'll come back. I'm sorry I have to ask you to hold your thoughts because we need to go to break. We'll come back and talk about the context under which we raised this particular issue and why we had to have that track played. In just a minute, please stay with us. Well, Mr. Daniel Bwala, a legal practitioner, is still with us here in our Abuja studios, and we're talking about insecurity. Interestingly, the conversation around fuel subsidy also came in, and we had to expand that conversation somewhat, because if the economy is not well, we certainly know that it could have an effect on the security situation in the country. But I understand my colleagues in Lagos would like to come in on the conversation. So, gentlemen, over to you.
Okay, well, yes, taking a look at some of these controversies making the rounds about the subsidy. Mr. Bwala, well, I haven't heard, because right now it seems as though they're passing the buck. If the PIA is meant to operate as an independent body and they take any decision that they want, and then you hear NEC or governor say, well, wait for that decision in June. But Labour, on the other hand, as Makwa also highlighted the fact that the president of the Senate, who presided over the Senate when that law was passed, is of a different opinion. Doesn't that give us a lot more questions to answer concerning how we should proceed with this and the impact it will have on the people, particularly when we have this insecurity challenge?
I agree with you that the subject is very tough, and it may seem like politicians are trying to pass the buck. You see, successive government in Nigeria, almost every government that came to power thought about this removal of subsidy. But it's a decision that for you to make, you have to have a courageous heart, and you have to also be prepared for possible backlash, especially if you're an elected public office holder. The reason is because the impact will be felt directly by the masses. Some of them may not understand the long-term effect. That's the positive. So that is the reason why, in my opinion, that everyone is a little bit jittery about that. But it's a fact that we have to live by. And all that we need to do is to sensitize our people that if the subsidy is removed, the money that is generated by the government arising from this new development will now be invested into infrastructure. We have been borrowing, and you have had Labour, everybody complaining that, look, you cannot run an economy that is purely focused on borrowing. So government is thinking about ways of generating revenue. But if you recall what the Senate president said, he said it's even doubtful as to whether what we are subsidizing, all of which are consumed in the country. He said it may well be that some are in the neighboring countries. So what is a solution to this kind of development? Is it not to remove the subsidy so that these corrupt practices, if they ever exist, they will cease to exist, and the revenue will come directly to the coffers of the federal government? I think what the masses should be educated or enlightened to know is that what the government does with whatever that is generated arising from this development is what must be accounted to the Nigerian people. And there are many ways you can cushion the effect of the removal of subsidy. Economists have analyzed that. I'm not an economist. Some talked about providing transportation. Some talked about one incentive or the other. I don't know the details, but I know that removal of fuel subsidy now has become a mandatory requirement of government because it has now been passed as a law. When it was not a law, the government had the luxury of pushing it and shifting it and moving away from it. But this is a fact that we have to live by. All we need is now to look at the details, whether or not the long-term effect of the removal of subsidy will be good for the Nigerian people.
You know, what concerns me this morning is quite simple, and I hope you help simplify it further, is why it looks like nobody wants to touch this issue of subsidy, in fact, with a 10-foot pole. So it looks like, well, it's not the president that ordered this. It's not the National Assembly. It's the government. And I wonder, why can't, this government just own up to this and say, well, it is our idea. The APC government, the President Muhammadu Buhari government, is going through with this. Recall that this was meant to happen under the Jonathan government. That's what it was tagged. And, all that attention shifted to President Goodluck Jonathan. So I understand that there might be fears around the backlash and all, but if this is right, as the government believes, then it should back this up fully. So I wonder, why is the fear? Is it because of 2023 or what? Why doesn't anyone want to, be associated with subsidy removal? And it seems like this is an orphan, as it were.
An orphan kind. I don't think so. But I'm glad that you have the inkling of political implications of statement. I know that that's why I was talking the other day. That's still in relation to the point here. And I said that when you talk about infrastructure, they are not talking point to take into election because they are long-term projects. So you see that politicians try to avoid the fundamentals that will keep our economy thriving. And subsidy is one of them. You, the members of the press, you probably must have been covering it over and over through successive regimes. How that people dread the idea of saying we want to remove it. But the point I am making today, and like you talk about simplification, is that now that it is a law, opinion of the federal government, opinion of the National Assembly, opinion of the judiciary, opinion of the members of the public, although blessed by law as freedom of expression, but will not have a consequential effect when it comes to the implementation of the act, because the section 4 of the Constitution said the legislative powers of the Federation shall be vested in the National Assembly. They have exercised that power by bringing a law to bear. The executive powers of the Federation lies in the President and the instrument through which he carries out. The executive branch execute the law. Now, so you members of the press, in my view, will be the ones that will look for whoever you want to extract that word from their mouth. But if you want me to tell you the simplification of the act and its implication with respect to the subsidy, now that it has become a law, it is no longer necessary the opinion or impression of anybody. It must be implemented. NNPC now operate as a profit-making company. Like Channels Television now, I don't think you're running your station as a pro bono company. That is a part of commercial activities. You can imagine if somebody is saying that what you're doing is sensitizing Nigeria is the right of people, just do it free, do it free. Will there
Mr.
be
Bwala,
to interview me looking good, dressing fine? Will
this
there
is
be
quite
Kyle in the
interesting.
studio looking good, dressing fine? That will not be. You have
Mr.
to
Bwala,
first survive as an organization, and then you can talk about corporate social responsibility.
You know, this is quite interesting, and I see what you're doing, by the way, but you know, when good things, as it were, happen, you know, the government is quick to say, you know, it's the government that did it. I mean, this recent pyramid, for example, the rice pyramid, in fact, you saw the picture of the president on the bags. You saw, what was it, thank you, Buhari, and also the government naturally owned up and said, you know, this is our idea. But when it comes to the the subsidy, and yes, the PIA, it looks like nobody wants to go near it. But let me just say that it will be on record that it was the APC government of President Muhammadu Buhari that successfully removed subsidy. Do you agree with that, at least?
I agree with it 100%. And I would like, by the time we win elections in 2023, I would like you to recall this conversation today that we successfully remove subsidy. We use the proceeds that we generate from the revenue to bring about infrastructure that will benefit Nigerians in the long run.
When we win or if we win?
Definitely when we win. PDP, is PDP ready? It's when we win. It is ours to lose. That's why we are careful about who emerges as the flag bearer of our party. But PDP does not have a chance.
But Mr. Bwala, Nigeria Labour Congress don't buy all these arguments about subsidy. They insist, come February 1st, we will make our point by going on strike. How do we address that?
The popularity of Nigerian Labour Congress hinged on protest and demonstration. The day the Labour Congress does not protest or demonstrate, they lose their favor, they lose their test. Now, even if the federal government give Nigerian Labour Congress a land, they will find a reason to demonstrate as to why that land was not accompanied with money to build. They are exercising their right to protect the interests of the Labour Congress, and it is fantastically supported by law, and I don't have anything against it. But I'm looking forward to a day when Nigerian Labour Congress, when they go on strike, they will engage the people on a debate on issues. Talk about the economy. The leader of the Labour Congress was on your sister program. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? When he was talking about protests and protest, he couldn't speak economically. He couldn't give a sound decision as to whether the government decision economically is flawed. He's talking about impact. So he's right. Mark had asked the question that impact, the Nigerian people will feel the impact. I agree. As I'm talking to you, I will feel the impact. But I believe that it's about time we take hard decisions that is necessary to put Nigeria on course. The most important thing in our conversation today, and I know Mape tactically derailed me away from security, but the thing is that if issues are put in their proper context, Nigerian people, Nigerian public will not have an issue with decisions of government.
They all have their security implication and security component, so it feeds into each other. But, you know, interestingly, some people in government today urged and encouraged, they go there, Occupy Nigeria protest against removal of subsidy at the time, and they said no, and today they appear to be singing a different tone. And incidentally, we had expected Joe Ajero to come and talk about that debate which you highlighted, but who knows? We don't know if he'll still make it. But here is president of the NLC while he was speaking on a sister program earlier on. Have a look.
Well, Labour have already indicated our line of action. First, we rejected this whole policy of continue to import product for domestic use, and now trying to look at how the system is not working and transfer the entire issue to Nigerians. And we have said clearly that there are many options. What we will do first is, already you are aware, Labour have set 27th of January to make sure that we're able to inform Nigerians. And I'm sure Nigerians are also joining to say that this policy certainly has a lot of implication and is going to push many people into poverty. And basically, these are options we are bringing to the table. If that fails and they said, well, we are continuing to drive the process and also remove the subsidy, the so-called subsidy, I want you to put the word subsidy in quotes. Then basically also you know what it entails. We have no any other option than also to resist the policy, and basically we have done that time without number.
Are you sure?
The issue why many Nigerians feel that we ought not to be in this situation is because we have oil. God has given us oil freely. What has happened to us that we cannot even refine it?
Do we dismiss those arguments?
You can imagine when he started, he said there are many options, but he never mentioned the options. If you go to England, when you see the label, these various society organizations that fight for the interests of their people, anytime there is a decision of government on a matter and they feel strongly about the issue, what they do is that they give the government alternative. I mean, intelligent and well-researched alternative to say, look, you are about to take an irresponsible decision because these are the alternatives. Labour Congress has not been able to bring any. Of course, it's probably because it doesn't exist in their association. But secondly, he's talking about giving a date and giving a trade. We are going to demonstrate. It's fine. Like I said, I give you an example with Twitter. The fact that something is popular with everybody and people are crying does not necessarily mean that it is the right thing. If you recall when Twitter issue came, we have a lot of human rights people all over the world saying what Nigeria is talking can never happen. There is nowhere in the world where Twitter abide by the decision of government. But you see how government stayed resolute, firm, and in the interim, we had some losses. But at the end of the day, Twitter had to obey. This is where responsibility comes into play. The idea that you can take a decision that is not popular, but you're convinced that this decision ultimately will be for the good of the people. And you provide a platform for those who think otherwise to give you options that are available, and none, including the PDP, prefer options rather than just criticizing. So it is actually cheap to talk, but provide the options or alternative. And then you can convince the Nigerian public that this government is irresponsible because these are options, are viable options that they fail to explore or take.
Part of the options that have been adduced, Mr. Bwala, is contained in some of the conditions that Labour has given. That, look, first of all, there should be availability. Let me quote Debo Ahmed, National President, IPMAN. There are some conditions that should be met, such as the availability of products, proximity of supply, and other related issues. Now, here it gets interesting. If most of these refineries are working, it'll be easy for the implementation of subsidy removal because products will not be subjected to foreign exchange. Isn't that something to consider?
Yeah, that's a good point. But then you probably may need to ask them the question, how will they refine? Why are the refineries not working, and how can we get the refineries to work?
Whose responsibility is it? Mr. Bwala, just a second. Whose responsibility is it to get the refineries working? Is it of labor, the people, or government?
Very good question. It is the responsibility of government to bring the refineries to work. And for government to do that, government will have to generate revenue. For the government to generate revenue,
the revenue isn't the
subsidy
are the refineries in the first place. Just a second, Mr. Bwala. Are the refineries themselves not supposed to be revenue generating? You know very well that they have been conduits of losses for the nation over the years.
Yeah, refineries are meant to be revenue generating platform of the government. When they are not working for the lack of funds, what do you need to do to get them working? To provide the funds to bring them to life. If the funds are not available, what do? Look for how you can raise funds to bring them back to life. If you have been borrowing and borrowing and you're reaching the stretch of the borrowing, you think inward and see how you can do one or two things to generate the revenue. Taking away subsidy is one of the ways by which the federal government will generate the revenue to bring to life this refinery so that the Nigerian people can have fuel or petrol or oil product at a more subsidized rate.
You know, it's been a long time coming, really, for the refineries. But that's not the only thing that we've been hoping and anticipating for, things to get better. And the other one is elections in Nigeria, the electioneering process. And this just takes me back to the statement you made about when the APC wins elections, not if. And I'm just curious, do you have it on good authority that the APC will win this election in spite of what Nigerians vote out there? Because when you say when and not if, it sounds like there's a plan somewhere that has secured the election for the APC.
Yes, there is a plan. But the plan is not what you're thinking. The plan is that, one, a party that will win election must establish that the party is popular. Now, the leadership of APC have been able to establish the popularity of the party because in the last 1.5 years, you have reported how governors, senators, and individuals are coming into the party. Nobody goes into the fiery furnace. People go into air conditioning place. So that, when you begin to see this indication, the party is becoming popular. The second thing is, you look at the government that is in the incumbent government. Now, for the people who focus on externalities, they can be swayed or carried away by emotions or sentiment. Those of us who happen to be alive and were born when we last saw the rail system in Nigeria, and we're seeing rail system coming into Nigeria, have now renewed hope in the Nigerian project that if infrastructure is properly taken care of in Nigeria, the future of Nigeria can be secured. This government have been able to lay the foundation, and we believe it's a talking point going into the election. The third one is that you look at your immediate close opposition. It is PDP. What record will PDP bring to the Nigerian people as a campaign talking point? Because you ride on your own record. The only record they have was a record from 1999 to 2015. And I bet you that they cannot speak convincingly about what they did from 1999 to 2015 that will be convincing enough to convince Nigeria. Why? Because, in fact, what they did from 1999 to 2015 was the reason why from 2015 we were plunged into problem. And then lastly, the candidacy of the person. Who in PDP is likely to emerge as a possible flag bearer? As I see PDP, the only candidate of PDP that can pose a threat to APC is Atiku Abubakar. They are already, sidelining him in their project. So I want you to help me by mentioning names in PDP that you think are going to defeat the candidate of APC. Even if APC produce me as a presidential candidate, we will win the election in 2023.
Mr. Bwala, on a lighter note, Daniel's brothers, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were the very funniest. I just said nobody goes in there. But, one wonders, is that why the APC doesn't seem keen about signing this electoral act? Because we've been going around this for a long time. Could that be part of the grand design?
Well, no, because if you look at the electoral, first of all, it's a National Assembly that is led by APC government. And number two, the recent hitch that we experienced is because of the inclusion of direct primaries as the only option. I favor direct primaries because I want democracy to move. But then when you bring that against the backdrop of existing laws and fundamentals of association, political party, and then you rank it pari passu decisions of court over the years that said that political party activities should not be dictated by external forces, then you will agree with the submission that parties should be allowed to choose the modes available. That was the only reason the president rejected the signing. But in that bill, you find all these other innovations we're talking about. Thankfully, the National Assembly is removing that as a mandatory requirement and putting them all as optional. When it gets to the president, he will sign. Now, PDP in 2019, tried to make a mountain out of a molehill, talking about the Electoral Act, as if the Electoral Act is passed into law, they will just be announced and they don't need to campaign and they don't need to win elections. If the Electoral Act is amended in a way that says if Chamberlain wears blue suit, Chamberlains will win election, then that means it behoves of Chamberlain to go and look for the blue suit. And that means when you go to the market, you have to search and find whether you can find the blue suit. Then you will meet with your competitors who are also looking for the blue suit. You see, so PDP keep talking as though and that's why when they came to 2019 election, look at the tribunal cases. They were producing Yahoo people to come and provide evidence against the government.
Mr. Daniel Bwala, you've skillfully woven yourself from security to politics.
You took me...
Security, economy, and then politics. And it was you who started talking about the context in which General Abdusalami Abubakar spoke. And that's why I had to bring in the Senate President, who also did not remember the context of the PIA, which was a party to. But we're totally out of time. And I know that you'll be back again because it's the political season and you'll be talking a lot about politics. So thank you for coming on this morning. Mr. Daniel Bwala is a legal practitioner. Well, he also does a lot of things, but that's his main work. Let's take a look at some of the mails which you have sent. This one is from Dixon Eka, talking about fuel subsidy removal controversy. He says, from all indications, the Senate President, Senator Ahmed Lawan, did not tell Nigerians the truth. Or was he not told the truth about fuel subsidy removal or petrol price hike? All the key actors in the economy, the Minister of Finance, the National Economic Council, the NNPC, and the Governors Forum have all indicated that there will be subsidy removal leading to a fuel price hike in June. If the National Assembly members know that their constituents don't want the fuel price hike, they should use their legislative powers to make provisions for subsidy payment in the supplementary budget. So, over to you, Mr. Senate President, according to Dixon Eka.
Well, this one is from Tiami, who says, what General Abdusalami said is the reality of now and tomorrow if the subsidy is removed. Economy of people at the lowest step of the ladder is already stressed, and removal of subsidy will make it harder. Then security may snowball. Nigerian government should not be concerned about revenue alone. Welfare of citizens is also paramount.
Take a look at this one from Prof. Chris Inakina, still on the subject, saying on subsidy removal, we need leaders to rebuild our economy and true democracy, where government must abstain from business to initiate workable economic policies, diversify the economy by investing in agriculture, cut interest rates to single digits, invest in SMEs, education and infrastructure.
Well, Dr. Ekwenwa says, tweet is just one counsel. The FG should now consider ways to cushion the harsh effects of subsidy removal.
Safini, and that's where we'll have to leave it this beautiful Friday morning. I guess it captures our thoughts this morning. Thank you so much for sending your thoughts as well. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf, wishing you a wonderful weekend.
Well, Kaido Kikulu is lining up behind Maokwe to wish you a wonderful weekend as well.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
I'm Train Balunuso, also lining up. Goodbye.